Hello, hello, hello. It's a rainy, this week's exciting reading adventure segment, or journal, or video blog, whatever you want to call it. It's February, and there's plenty of fish in the sea to deck in the face. I always say, that's if you're a Pisces. Well, wait, no. It's Aquarius time right now, so they're even better still. I'm wearing gloves today. You want to know why? Because we're going to be examining, not a prostate exam, we're examining some giant size pile of reading adventures this week, featuring monsters. And these is a particular favorite titles of mine, and I paid some good money for these. Priceless. They're practically priceless, except for the $100 plus price tag in the back of these. Supplied by my favorite comic book dealer, one of my favorite comic book dealers, locally, Brad Sloan. Always gets me some great books, and gives me a great discount on them. And of course, we're going to be starting with giant-sized creatures. This is a perennial favorite of mine. When I was 10 years old or so, I remember reading this the first time in the back porch of my apartment complex, the apartment building that my apartment was in, and I remember reading this cover to cover. Even though the prose stuff was kind of hard in the day. But this is also a key issue because it features the first appearance of Tigra, the werewoman, teaming up with Werewolf by Night. These giant-sized books, they were tryout books at the time before they were rewarded their own series. Issue 2 of this became giant-sized Werewolf by Night. Another thing is, according to, if I remember correctly, from Tony Isabel's prose, Tiger used to be Greer Nielsen, aka the Cat, which was one of the 3 series that were focusing on women characters. The other being Night Nurse, and I think Shannon the She-Devil was in there. And they did not sell. They weren't overwhelmingly popular. The Cat only lasted 4 issues, even though there was a 5th issue penciled by the late great Ramona Frandon that never saw the light of day, except if you happened to be on Marvel.com, and Tom, I think the editor-in-chief of their Brief Revolt is his name. I have him as a Facebook friend. He posted some unused artwork on his page. Anyway, without further ado, I'm going to dive into the synopsis of here. As the Cat, Greer Nielsen is struck by a new Hydra weapon that will condemn her to death by radiation poisoning. To save her life, her mentor, Dr. Tumomo, takes her to the hidden lair of the Cat people to have her reborn as Tigra the Werewoman. Hydra attacks again, abducting Tigra, Tumomo, and the Cat people in an effort to gain the secret of their ultimate weapon. Jack Russell, the werewolf, happens to be passing by when Tigra is taken, and joins the fight. In order to defeat Hydra, Tumomo releases their final secret upon them, the same black plague that the Cat people had released and cured centuries ago. I don't know if Tony Isabel was taking his cue from the movie The Cat People when he wrote this story, or it's just something he made up on the fly. But every time I see Hydra, I'm often reminded of my own Facebook profile, and I always have this compulsion to have 5,000 friends at all times. And I always warn people, no, if you delete me, 2 more will take your place, like a Hydra. So here's the first page. It's written by Dozing Isabella, penciled by the late Don Perlin. Recently lost him, maybe a year or two ago. Vince Coletta and Roy Thomas is edited, and you can see how pristine this book is. So I put this as a mint condition book, and I think I have it going on my Hip Comics is going for $135. Even though I paid a little more for it, but like I said, Brad gives me a discount, so I don't really not sure how much I really paid for it. Yeah, the price listed as $160 on the back, so take it from there. Opening shot of yeah, the order of the story is that Jack Russell's wandering on the beach, and he stumbles across Greer Nielsen being chased by Hydra. He gets knocked out by Hydra, and then from there we go to she transforms into her Tigra, the werewolf woman, and she makes quick work of the Hydra agents, and she sees that Jack is unconscious on the beach there. She tries to maybe help him, revive him, and now and then they come to Werewolf and her start battling, and some gorgeous battle scene there, rendered by Perlin, and flash bomb. Hydra revives. They take a flash bomb. They toss it in Jack Russell's knocked back unconscious, and the werewolf is abducted. And here's a little prose thing Roy Thomas wrote, chronicling the rise of how they were able to start doing werewolves and vampires and zombies and all that stuff, because at the time the Comics Code Authority forbid this type of thing, having these horror titles, and when the CCA relaxed their their restrictions, whatever, Marvel came in with these Marvel books featuring Dracula, Werewolf by Night, the Mummy, and all sorts of. The Golem is another one I remember. There's a flashback story about Greer Nielsen as she became the cat, so to speak. This little preview of the cat. There's a cameo of the cat taking on the Hydra agents herself, and of course that's when they shot her with some radiation gun, and her mentor, that's Dr. Tumolo, she takes her to a secret place where she is revealed that she is one of the cat people, and they inject her some magical serum, and lo and behold, you got this breathtaking splash page of Tigra's first appearance. It's not really revealed why the Hydra guys are after this secret plague, whatever, or germ warfare, or it's just that Jack Russell helps them out, eviscerates a bunch of Hydra agents, and the only way to get out of this melee is to have Dr. Jamal show them about the Black Plague, and it just happens to be, mustard gas or some sort of, and it's just the werewolf by Jack Russell has never seen a woman like this before. He thinks that she is one of his own kind, and sorry, he gets werewolf cocked blocked, and Tiger is not taking it. So there's that. And the disappointing thing is that after a while, it was that the Greer could change back and forth with Tiger at the first, but now since to save her from ever contracting that Black Plague, it's she can can no longer revert back to Greer, and she's kind of cool with that. And so, I think I see an ad in the paper for I think the Avengers are hiring, so that's where she wound up. And Tiger these days, she is still active in the Marvel comic book universe. She is a semi co-star of Moon Knight books now. There's a little other short story. It's called Where Walks the Werewolf, and it's very basically simple. It's an experimental surgery creates a werewolf that dies trying to kill his romantic rival, and here there's some continuity notes in here. This issue is the first appearance of Greer Nielsen of Tiger. She appeared last the Cat in Marvel Team Up #8, and she appears next in Marvel's Unleashed #10, which I was not aware of that she had her own black and white series or story there. Joanne Trumeau, Mal Donovan, and Shirley Bryant appear in a recap events which were chronicled in the Cat #1. Jack Russell appeared last in Werewolf by Night #18. He appears next in Werewolf by Night #19. And Tiger Origins has been recounted many times since this issue, beginning with Marvel Chillers #3. Oh, that's right. She had her own solo series of Marvel Chillers. I have some of those in the pile. Despite both races being humanoid cats, the cat people who first appeared in this issue initially did not have any connection to the cat demons from the land within, which had so recently made their appearance in Fear issues 21 to 22. This lack of any intended link is supported by the different origins that were provided for each race and the noticeably different designs for their heads and legs. The idea that the two races actually did have a common origin was first revealed over 8 years later in the untold tale of the Marvel Universe narrated by the Watcher in What If issue #35. A more detailed and slightly tweaked version of that origin was told by Tiger by Gregar in West Coast Avengers Volume 2, #6. Is that something that's recent? I know no, it can't be, because that series is only, the current series is only up to issue #3. It's in my pull box. Publication notes. This is the first and only issue of this series. The renumbering for this issue continues on as Giant Size Werewolf. Oh yeah, like I said, these were tryout books. The Giant Size were first released upon the expecting public as tryout series. The issues ones became when issue twos became the regular titles. Like this, like I said, where this became Giant Size Werewolf #2 following this issue. This issue includes a text article written by Roy Thomas entitled "Waiter, there's a werewolf in my soup." This issue includes a text article by Tony Isabella and Gil Kane entitled "Tiger's Year." And Giant Size Creatures was one of the Marvel's few giant size projects that did not correspond to an ongoing comic book series, but technically this is Giant Size Werewolf #1. One thing I want to know about this story, the Stanley. It's okay. Well, this is a, I don't know. They took this from a recent book, reprinted in here. Because Len Wein's a writer. Reed Crandall is an old. You probably notice his name from EC Comics. Did a lot of those horror and true crime stories and whatsoever. It was a good story. I love the art. It's Reed Crandall updating his style for the 70s. Those EC books were printed in the 50s, and it was nice to see him get some work after those books were maliciously canceled by Frederick Wertham. Let's see. There's also a Mr. Fantastic value stamp, And you got Tiger, that's who she was first conceived by Tony Isabella, and I believe that Gil Kane did that. All right, so yeah, that was Monday night's read. Lovely book, lovely. There's another one, another perfect on Tuesday night. Giant Size Chillers featuring the Curse of Dracula, and hopefully this is there was a God damn my there was a comic. We have a local comic convention called the San Fernando Valley Comic Con, and they have a rival between this other guy who's putting on conventions at Canoga Park. Anyway, he used this cover, and it's something that it's comic books and drinks. Oh, comic books and cocktails. Yeah, that's what he calls his Canoga Park get together. They take over a Legion Hall somewhere, and they have comic book dealers come by, and the adult ones are they sell, they sell comic books and pound down a few cocktails, and they use this cover as a parody. In his hand would be a drink here, and in her hand would be a drink here too, and it was funny. I wish I took a screenshot of it. So this is a Giant Size Chillers, featuring the Curse of Dracula. Issue 2 became Giant Size Tomb of Dracula, or it's just Giant Size Dracula, I believe. So this is a very long synopsis, and this was a very hard read for me. I am not a big fan of Dracula. Well, I wasn't a big fan of Tomb of Dracula. I had like scattered issues here and there. Probably the first Blade appearance, I probably had that. But I know some of my friends local friends nearby in the apartment complex I lived in. There was a Tomb of Dracula fan there, and I commend him because those issues are if he saved those issues, those were issues are worth bucks. So, I mean, and this issue was worth was quite the pretty penny. I mean, I had this up on my Hip Comics page. It's going for 181. I think this is like my 7th highest expensive book in my arsenal. So this story, Night of the, another thing. Another reason why I say this is a hard read for me because it took me like an hour and a half to read this entire issue. Because I kept nodding off on it. It's hard for me to get into vampire stories or gothic stories at that time of night. There's just there's so much exposition and so many captions to read in order to get some dialogue here and there. So a synopsis. This story is called the Night of the She-Demon. And it's written by Marv Wolfman and rendered by Gene Colan and inked by Frank Giramonte. Roy Thomas edited this one also. And it's got a very long synopsis. And then hopefully it'll clear up some things up for me that I couldn't, my mind, to clear the fog that was in my head while reading this issue. And it points out that the events of this issue happen between Tomb of Dracula issues 21 and 23. Dracula's return to London, England, and his first stop is the British Parliament, where he pays a visit to Lord Henry, a politician under his thrall, to discuss matters. He requests the Lord work into getting him diplomatic immunity, so he's no longer haunted by the police while operating in Britain. Dracula then begins discussing the acquisition of a castle just outside of London, one owned by Sheila Whittier. Up north from London is a cemetery where a grave begins to stir for the first time in 30 years. Not too far away is the home of Martin O'Hare, who is once more doling out punishment on his daughter, Angela, who is getting punished for allowing her boyfriend, Ted Hannigan, to get her pregnant out of wedlock. Ted tries to stop Martin from hitting her daughter anymore and is knocked aside. He dies from a fatal blow to his head. As Angela cries over the death of her lover, the spirit of Lilia, the daughter of Dracula, rises from a nearby grave and takes possession of her body. Changing Angela's body into her own form, Lilia then attacks and feeds upon Martin before flying off into bat form. While at the home of Quincy Harker, Quincy receives a phone call from Frank Drake and Rachel Van Hessling, who report that Dracula has been killed in an explosion. Quincy reports this good news back to Cha, who silently retires to his room where he finds a letter from his homeland in India. Its contents prompt him to pack his things and leave to return to his mother country. A short while later, Lilith arrives at the house of Quincy Harker, taking on the form of an innocent woman. She knocks on the door and asks Quincy for help with a fake story about her father dying. When Quincy has his back turned to her, Lilith resumes her vampiric form and feeds upon him and then leaves. Later that same night, Dracula arrives at Castle Dunwick, the home of Sheila Whittier. Entering the estate, Dracula rouses Sheila, a woman with mysterious scars all over her back. She comes to find out who is in her home and finds Dracula greeting her with a purposeful smile. While elsewhere in London town, Lilith frequents the Red Bull Tavern, where she picks up a man and makes her next victim. With the discovery of the bodies, the Spectre Quem pays a visit to the home of Quincy Harker to tell him what has transpired, to find Quincy alive but unconscious. He has his own men call for an ambulance. Back at the home of Sheila Whittier, Sheila completely submits to Dracula, thinking that he is over his former tormentors. Dracula assures her that he is not and tries to inquire about her whippings. However, Sheila changes the subject. When Dracula tells her that he must go, she tries to convince her or him to stay, but he does not. Upon exiting the manor, Dracula spots another vampire bat flying in the sky, recognizing it as his daughter Lilith. Surprised that she is alive once more, Dracula follows after her across the countryside to London. He follows her to a football game and confronts her. The two talk about their past together, about how he does not care for her as she was the daughter of a forced marriage to a woman named Sophia. Sophia, centuries ago, was thrown out of Dracula's palace when she would take her daughter Lilith to Leilanda, the gypsy woman who would eventually turn Dracula into a vampire. When Dracula would get revenge against her by feasting upon Leilanda's own son, Leilanda would cast a spell that would turn Lilith into a vampire that was bent on causing her father as much trouble as possible. With reflection over, Lilith asks Dracula to drop their grudge towards one another and asks him to form an alliance so they can rule vampires together. Having other than pressing concerns, Dracula rejects the idea and leaves by changing into bat form. With Dracula's departure, Lilith vows to get revenge against Dracula. As Quincy Harker recovers in the hospital, Dracula returns back to the home of Sheila Whittier just in time to save her from a fall down the stairs. He learns that someone is in the house and has been tormenting her. Rushing upstairs, he finds his own slave, Lord Henry, who tells his master that he has been brought to do horrible things. Admitting to being the one who tormented and tortured Sheila, he pulls a gun out and kills himself, unable to find any other way to stop from doing it ever again. Wow, that was quite the synopsis. Okay, so I didn't mention this is the first appearance of Lilith, who went on to star in her own black and white series of either Dracula Lives or Vampires Unleashed or Vampire Tales. I'm sorry, Vampire Tales, not Vampires Unleashed. Of course, there's Lilia's first major appearance there. That's probably why I paid the big bucks for her. The exquisite Gene Colan art. Gene Colan had, I guess he had to restrain himself for, well, other than that page. I mean, he's drawing regular 6-page, 7-panel pages here. Because Marv Wolfman writes a lot. There was that scene. Where was that scene there? Let's go back for a second. This is some harsh stuff. Look at that. All right, so smacking around, the guy's smacking around his pregnant daughter. Boyfriend's had enough. He gets involved. He gets a smack in return, and he's dead. Yikes! I didn't mean it. I didn't mean to. And I assume Lilith killed the guy, and I mean she killed him in her Lilith form, or when the Lilith possessed her. The chase scene, the going down memory lane, Dracula and the daughter. This there's a lot to keep track of in this story. There's so many moving parts going on. Because it takes place in continuity of the regular Tomb of Dracula series, and and here is revealed that that the guy he used like vampire brainwashing him for Dracula to operate unfettered in London has had enough of it and decides to off himself. Let's see, and here's a keeping track of Dracula prose story. Marv Wolfman felt he owed the people an explanation of keeping track of Drac. Marv Wolfman explains some of the history of Dracula's Marvel Adventures and the creators who worked on these titles, as well as the reasoning for some minor retcons, such as Dracula not being dead for 100 years, like originally suggested, as well as maintaining continuity for Dracula despite his many stories across the different titles. This is another thing that turned me off about Tomb of Dracula. I did not like the look of Dracula. I didn't like that. I didn't like Gene Colan's rendition of him. I don't know. It's just ghastly. It's just always bearing the fangs. That mustache was not. That pencil thin mustache was just not doing it for me. You don't see many Draculas with pencil thin mustaches in the movies. The Vulcan ears, of course, that's another thing. It was not my thing, but to each his own. This series lasted 75 issues. I remember I was in maybe 4th grade or 5th grade when this series ended. But they got a lot out of it. Let's see. There's some here, short little reprinted stories that Stan Lee wrote for the 50s mags, and John Romita did the artwork on there. And the synopsis for Have You Ever Seen a Huge Black Vampire? It means described as a police chief of a village is revealed to be a vampire. And there's another story in here. This is only a 4-page story, so the village graveyard. Okay, I thought the whole title was here. They was worse than death in the village graveyard, but it's just the village graveyard, and that's and also another. I believe it's another Stan Lee's. This is Russ Heath. Look at that, Russ Heath, another classic artist there. And it's simply described as a man finds a secret of eternal life, but he doesn't anticipate being the recipient of the vampire's kiss. Notes in here, the next issue of this series continues as the retitled Giant-Sized Dracula. The second story is originally titled Vampire in Mystic, issue 25 of Mystic. Continuity notes, Saint is Quincy Harker's dog. Okay, some trivia here. In the Night of the She-Demon, The writers depict Dracula entering the home of Sheila Winters without an invitation. This is contrary to vampire lore, which states that a vampire must ask to be invited into one's home before they can may ever enter. I don't know why, but but geez, it's protocol, I guess. Okay. Now, don't laugh. Don't laugh at this time. It's Wednesday's read. Giant-sized Man-Thing. Oh boy, with a title like that, how can you go wrong? All right, this is an interesting, very interesting. This is Steve Gerber's story. Very involved read in here. This one took me a long time to read too. Steve Gerber wrote it. Ed Hannigan, Ron Wilson did the pencils. Frank Springer did the inks, and Len Wein edited the book. And it's quite the potpourri of assembled talents. Each talented all right, bringing something unique and new to the title here. And it's a story called The Kid's Night Out. And, geez, it's quite involved reading here. Let me see if I can... And, let's see, the story goes like this. The Man-Thing finds himself drawn to the emotions that are coming from a funeral being held for Edmund Winsett. Attending the funeral is his parents' uncle, aunt, grandmother, gym teacher, and classmates. However, when Alice Rhymes, Edmund's classmate and only friend, interrupts the eulogy to call them all on how horribly they treated Edmund, she is violently removed by Edmund's uncle. However, she is saved by the Man-Thing, which is drawn by the violent emotions and burns Edmund's uncle, and Alice manages to escape. The next day, Alice takes an essay written by the late Edmund to have it published in the school's newspaper. The essay inside is Edmund's life story, which he talks about how he was always treated poorly because of his weight, and how his gym teacher ultimately caused his death by pushing him too hard and literally making Edmund run to death. Believing that it's all lies perpetuated by Alice, the gym teacher calls in the Woodshed clan to confront her. As they're about to burn Edmund's memoirs, the Man-Thing arrives and attacks them all. Each victim gives them their fears and is burned and killed in a fitting epitaph to their behavior to Edmund. After the attacks end, the Man-Thing walks off again to the swamp. And this story is continued in Man-Thing number 17. Some things in this story personally revive some not so pleasant memories. And here's one thing. Man-Thing comes across a deer being stricken by a fallen tree during a rainstorm, and animals don't show the same fear as humans do, because I mean, come on, you're trapped under a tree and some muck monsters coming towards you. You'd be shitting bricks or shitting muck, and Man-Thing's the deer just simply scampers off. Hey, thanks, Man-Thing, buddy. So here's the eulogy scene gathered here. There is something that very disturbing that brought back a very unpleasant memory of my childhood that happens in this scene here. And I'm not sure my relative would like me telling this story, but anyway, this girl Alice Rhymes, she sees this whole thing as a facade. The eulogy. I mean, she's rudely interrupts the proceeding, which isn't cool at all. But here, this kid's relatives gathered there, and she says this is all facade. And this uncle gets irritated, and this just goes over and just decks her in the face. Yeah, decks her in the face. And furthermore, he takes her and just throws her in the mud. This scene brought out something personal that happened in my childhood. I have an aunt, one of my twin aunts. Before they moved out to California, when they moved to California, I was when I was like maybe 9 or 10 years old. We had, since we live in an apartment complex, we had there were no pets allowed in our apartment complex. So but still, my stepdad bought a terrier, a little terrier, and we had it for a couple of years until one day management caught wind of it and told us to get rid of it. So my aunt knew somebody who could take in the dog temporarily because we wanted the dog back. We were planning my mom and stepdad were planning on buying a house, and we were going to retrieve that dog whenever we bought that house. Never happened. So my aunt took it to those people, and those people decided they wanted to keep the dog. This irritated my stepdad because my stepdad wanted the dog back. He wanted to go. He wanted my aunt to get the dog back and bring it right back right now before she left for California. And she did not comply. It's just, she's happy over there. I mean, she's besides my stepfather had a temperament, to beat on that dog anyway. When he came home late from work, either drunk, because he was a bartender, he drank some of the profits out there. So when she refused, he just ran over and said, "You said what?" Just took and just smacked her. I mean, like, he was if she were my mom. I mean, what he gave him carte blanche to do that. But that's how my stepfather thought with his fist. That's how he settled things with his fists. And so he decked her, and she was freaking just wide-eyed, and she just ran out and said, and said no, and he ran after her and chased her to the car she had parked outside, and got in her Volkswagen. He was pounding on the window and is, "You get that freaking dog back! You get that dog back! I swear, blah blah blah." And she remember she had a piece of Kentucky Fried Chicken. We were eating Kentucky Fried Chicken that day, and and she took this piece of chicken. She smacked, she threw it at him and smacked him in the head, and he was miffed, and she rolled the window and she drove off and wasn't seen for a while. Then my stepfather goes up and he's upstairs and he takes it out of my stepmom and he decks her around, and we're sitting there watching, me and my stepsister. That was quite the memory, and some of my neighbors saw it happen too, man. And but when after my stepdad decked my mom, and she hit her head against the thing, and we thought he killed my mom. He killed my mom, and he ran out. He ran, and we had the police had to come by, and it wasn't a great childhood memory. But anyway, that story provoked the memory, and this is why I started nodding off. I had to get up like 2 or 3 times. I was nodding off in and out 3 times while reading this prose story. Quite a lengthy read here. There's of course here's Man Thing. Play on those emotions. He senses emotions. He brings them brings them to the high school gymnasium, where they want what's the girl's name, to give up those journals, those diaries that the kid wrote, and because they don't want to see him published. And Man Thing comes in as they're torturing her, and here's the giant death scene playing it out here, and people just getting eviscerated left and right. And Marvel value stamp for the Ancient One. And there's a bonus story here. Of course, Howard the Duck. This is the 3rd Howard the Duck solo story, and it's called Frog Death. Brad says this is the funniest story he's ever read of Howard the Duck, and I had to debate him on that. I always thought the Space Turnip guy in issue 2 of Howard the Duck's magazine was the funniest story I wrote at that time. So, synopsis for Frog Death. After months of falling between the dimensional and was stranded on during this battle against the Overmaster, Howard lands back on Earth. However, this time he lands in Cleveland, befriending some children. They take Howard on a near cigar shop where the indifferent owner is given a shock first by Howard's currency, U.S. money with ducks for presidents, and later his experience. His appearance. When asking the children why the cigar shop owner was on edge, they point out Garco, a man who, since moving to the neighborhood, has sat out of the window of his fourth-floor apartment, looking into a jar and occasionally yelling about taking over the world. Garco debates over the merits of ruling the world and decides that the point of acquiring power would be to get more, which would equate to killing people. Opting to just cut out the world conquering and skipping to the killing, he consumes the potion in his bottle and transforms into a man-frog creature. When the rampaging Gargo approaches Howard and the boys, Howard sends them off to call the police while he battles the man-frog. During the fight, Gargo begins to shrink and turn into a real frog, swinging blindly. Let me see. Swinging blindly, Howard accidentally strikes a police officer who has arrived at the scene. Not believing a story about a great man-frog, the police arrest Howard and instead believing him to be the maniac they were called in for. As the police car drives away, it runs over the frog body of Greco. Did that happen? I don't know. Oh, so it did. That's why Brad Sloan found this so funny. Alrighty. Yeah, this is the third Howard the Duck appearance. I also have this reprinted in a omnibus of Howard the Duck stories, of all the ones that happened in the 70s. Let me see this here. This I don't know. Okay, this is sort of like a pre-Doctor Strange story. I mean, it looks like something like, if Doctor Strange were Russian. A Russian returning to his farm after the war is fought on his soil to be good, and he goes prospecting for gold in caves. He comes across invaders from Dimension Z, but they fear fire, so he holds them back with flames in order to finish constructing a door that will knock them deeper in the cavern while he finishes mining. The Soviet authorities seize his gold and demand that he lead them to the source. When they are before the door, they demand to be open over his protests and rough him up and to seize the key. Outside the cave, he hears their shouts and knows that two evil forces have encountered each other. He muses that he will demand freedom from the premier, and if refused, will open the door a final time to ensure that the tyranny perishes from his homeland. Let me see. And there's one more story they managed to cram in this. When they say giant size, they're not kidding around. You just got to cram with everything. This is one that's called A Man with No Past. And the synopsis for Man with No Past is an artist who's been working with a publisher for a year suffers from severe claustrophobia. His boss refers him to a psychiatrist who puts him under hypnosis and asks him to draw his earliest memories. But they only go back to 1 year that he's been working on for the publisher. He hires a detective to do a background check, but he can only find documentation a year old. When he puts the artist under the deepest possible trance and demands he draw the earliest possible memory, he produces a drawing of a man lying in a casket. Oh boy. This is also, the story was drawn by Frank Brunner, who also drew the classic Howard the Duck story. Okay, there's a trivia here. Garco, the man-frog's name, is spelled as Gorko on the cover to this issue. Is that right? Let's see. Are they correct? Why? They are. It's misspelled as Gorko when it's Garco. Okay. Anything else in here? Yeah, that's quite the issue. That's quite the giant-sized man thing. Yay. Don't let that one dangle between your legs too long. All right, so last but not least, Marvel Classic Comics. My friend Elliot Magan has written a few of these for Marvel, but he did not write this one. This one was adapted by John Warner, a novelist in writing a lot of the black and white tales and editing the black and white magazines. Geez, I don't know. Do you really need a synopsis for this one? Do I really need to read this one? Why not? This is a giant size video, so this might be going on for an hour. Jesus Christ! And I wanted to do this early in the morning too, man, like 7:30 or so. But well, my first attempt, it got interrupted by my alarm to wake up. And I said, I'm not going to get this in time before I have to clock in. I'm on the clock, by the way, doing this. So hopefully I can get this done without being interrupted again. So in 1788, Victor Frankenstein leaves his family estate in Geneva, Switzerland, to study natural science at the University of Ingolstadt. While there, he becomes obsessed with the ideal of recreating life from dead tissue and begins robbing graveyards in order to acquire body parts. He stitches the various body parts together and subjects the patchwork subject to chemical treatments and electrolysis. Frankenstein eventually succeeds in bringing his creation to life. Horrified by the creation's Jonas's features, Victor abandons the creation and returns to Geneva. The monster becomes a subject of fear and horror in Ingolstadt and flees into the forest. He briefly befriends an old man and learns how to speak and read. With time, he decides to travel towards Geneva to find his father, learn why he had created and later rejected him. The monster comes upon young William Frankenstein and accidentally murders him. He frames a woman named Justine Mortiz for the crime. Justine is Frankenstein's house servant and lifelong friend of Victor, and she's arrested and is sentenced to hanging for the murder of young William Frankenstein. Victor soon discovers that his creation is responsible for the death of his little brother. The monster confronts Victor and forces him to create a mate for him. Distressed, Victor agrees to do so, but later reneges on his promise and destroys his work. The monster vows to be with him on his wedding night. Sometime later, Victor and his childhood cousin Elizabeth are married. They go on holiday in a nearby village of Elang. The monster tracks them down and murders Elizabeth. Frankenstein grows insanely obsessed and begins tracking the creature all across Europe. He eventually chases him as far north as the Arctic Pole. There, both father and son, dying from exposure, learn they have nothing left in this world but each other. Pretty much follows the novel faithfully, I would assume. I was not privy to reading that. Maybe I did read it back in high school. I think we had some of these books assigned to us as for literature 1, literature 2, or something like that. And this might have been the one that was assigned to us. I remember reading the Scarlet Letter, and I had to take an F on the report. I could not finish that book. That book was I could not get one word of that book. I couldn't comprehend one single sentence in that book. Now I imagine this would I imagine this would be an easier read, but notes this issue contains an interior cover illustration of Mary Shelley provided by artist Howard Chaykin, which I believe where is that? I did see that. There it is. That's early Howard Chaykin, 1977. Before he did Star Wars, before he became a household name and being the artist for Star Wars before the movie even came out. Although it's never specified in this adaptation, the Frankenstein monster murders Henry Clerval in Ireland. Okay. Trivia. Behind-the-scenes appearance of Robert Walton. The original novel was presented as a flashback narrative spoken by the dying Victor Frankenstein to Captain Robert Walton. The Walton character does not appear in this adaptation, but it does in fact appear in the Monster of Frankenstein comic series. There was also a Monster of Frankenstein series that Marvel did, lasted a few issues. The iteration of that Frankenstein eventually went into other titles. Like I think there was a Marvel team up issue that I had with him in it. I don't know if I have that issue still. Okay, so Mary Shelley's name is misspelled Shelley on the cover of this issue. Oh, gee whiz. Okay, all right. Good going there, Marvel proofreaders. And Ingolstadt is misspelled as Ingolstadt several times throughout this issue. It's Ingolstadt. Ingolstadt, not Ingolstadt. Yeah, okay, these things, they happen. They happen. Oh, wow. So, anyway, let's go through some of this. Who's the art? This is nice about these ones. This is Marvel's answers to classic illustrators. You don't need it's right off the bat. It's a takeoff on Marvel classic illustrators. I think they weren't even publishing at the time anymore. They'd gone through everything, the whole gamut of adaptations. So it gives you a little bio of Mary Shelley. Believe it, she was only 21 years old when she wrote Frankenstein, and wrote a few novels after that, but none of the stature of this story, of this book here. There was another horror thing she wrote. I can't remember. It was a short story. House of Seven Gables. Was that hers? Anyway, the artwork is done by Dino Castrillo. I don't know if I assume that he's a Spanish artist. I don't know much about him. Ralph Macchio, I know him. He did staff on here. Ernie Chan did the cover, which I have on my Facebook. I tagged the estate of Ernie Chan in this issue. Monster he's quite. He reminds me of the way the monster's portrayed in that series Penny Dreadful a bit. He's intelligent. He has intelligence. He speaks in complete sentences and correct verbal usage. There's the murder of the young brother there by Frankenstein, which was accidental, by the way. One claims to be an accidental. He's a cool, calculating monster in this one. He's a planner. He plans things in advance. And he kills Frankenstein's wife because he refuses to make the bride for him. This documents that when Frankenstein found books and taught himself to read, much like Tarzan did. In fact, he's a cool, calculating, cruel individual here. He's the worst kind. I mean, here's where he killed the young kid there. Lengthy read. Took me over an hour to read. I kept nodding off in the middle. Of course, this book is not that great shape either. I only paid, how much did I pay for this one? No. I paid $16 for this. But still, it stayed within my week's theme of giant size monster mashes. And this is where he kills Elizabeth, his wife / cousin. Yeah, things were not frowned upon back in those days. You could marry your cousin. It was okay. You can fiddle her bits underneath those long tresses of theirs, and know about an eyebrow. So I know there's a movie that uses this scene. Is it I, Frankenstein or something like that? That actor made that uses the cold Arctic as a background. So that's it for this week, man. This is the longest one. This is 55 minutes. This was a giant size one. So next week I got a couple of old Dell classics to do, and that's it. Oh, Moonstone I have. Oh yeah, Elliot Magan, he wrote the Moonstone one. So anyway, that's it. I'll see you next time. Bye.